In 1900, two French brothers named André and Edouard Michelin published a little red guidebook which sounds increasingly elegant today. When we think of the Michelin Guide now, we think of multi-course tasting menus, eye-watering bills, and chefs using tweezers to arrange microgreens with the fanatic intensity of an open-heart surgeon. But that's not how it started. It started with tires. See, at the turn of the 20th century, there were fewer than 3,000 cars in the entire country of France, which meant the Michelin brothers had a classic capitalist conundrum. If people don't drive, they don't wear out their tires. And if they don't wear out their tires, they don't buy more Michelins. So they made a guide, maps, mechanics, hotels, restaurants, essentially a list of reasons to get out of the house. The strategy was beautifully simple: get people on the road. And over the next century, that literal tire advertisement evolved into the most prestigious restaurant registry on the planet, giving birth to the near mythical figure, the Michelin Inspector. Now, the inspector does not arrive with a brass fanfare and a clipboard labeled soup crimes. They eat anonymously. They pay attention. They intentionally look past the mood lighting, the dramatic plating, and the tiny edible flower bounced on top of the appetizer like it has a PhD in symbolism. Because they know a dish can look beautiful and still completely fail. A sauce can be glossy, but totally flat. A plate can arrive looking immaculate, but still entirely miss the point. Which brings us to the current state of education. Because right now, teaching is facing a major well-plated problem. With the rise of generative AI, anyone can produce a polished piece of work in about 4 seconds. An AI-generated feedback comment can sound profoundly thoughtful. A rubric can look impeccably professional. A lesson plan can appear flawless, organized, and complete. And look, teachers are chronically overworked, and having a digital sous chef is generally helpful. But polished is not the same as accurate. Feedback is not table decoration. It's precise, human judgment about what a student actually understands, what the evidence shows, and what needs to happen next. A beautiful AI-generated comment that doesn't actually match the reality of the student's work isn't good feedback. It's just a well-plated mistake. AI can help us plate the meal, but the teacher still has to taste the food. AI can draft, teachers decide. I'm Peter Weise, and this is Science Wise, a practical podcast about teaching, assessment, and tools that actually fit inside real chaotic classrooms. I've spent over 23 years at the whiteboard, and today we're talking about teachers using AI. Today, we're talking about teacher workflow, how AI can help us plan, write, adapt, and respond faster without accidentally outsourcing the professional judgment that makes us teachers in the first place. Just like the Michelin Inspector, we need to look beyond the presentation. AI can make teacher work look polished, but in education, does it look good? Is the wrong question. The right question is it true to the student, the evidence, and the learning target? AI can draft, teachers decide. That's our North Star for this episode. Let's start with a foundational truth. Teacher efficiency is not the enemy. I want to state that clearly because sometimes the academic discourse around AI makes it sound like if you save 5 minutes on a lesson plan, you've committed some sort of pedagogical sin. No. Teachers are busy in a way that stacks up quickly. Planning, grading, parent messages, hallway questions, missing work, tech problems, student check-ins, and the actual teaching itself all compete for the same timeline. So if a large language model can help you format directions, generate lab examples, or make your rubric language clear, use it. The goal here isn't AI abstinence. The goal is structural awareness. The idea to keep in focus is this: use AI where it reduces friction, not where it removes judgment. There is a real difference between asking AI, help me rewrite these lab safety directions for clarity, and asking it, tell me what the student understands and what grade they deserve. One is drafting support, the other is professional judgment. So how do we operationalize this? Classroom rule number 1, use AI Upstream. In the culinary world, we call this mise en place, getting your ingredients prepped, chopped, and measured before the cooking actually starts. Upstream AI use means the tools help with the materials before student-specific data enters the equation, before the names, before the grades, before the private details that the tool does not need. Upstream tasks are things like generating lesson hooks, creating non-examples, writing practice questions, or designing student success checklists. You aren't asking the machine to judge a human being, you're asking it to help prep the kitchen. Here's what it sounds like in practice. Create 3 practice questions targeting the concept of conservation of mass. Give me 1 strong example, 1 partial example, and 1 weak example of a hypothesis. List 3 common misconceptions 9th graders have about cellular respiration. Notice what's missing from those prompts? Student names, ID numbers, private histories, diagnoses. If the tool doesn't need the ingredients to help you prep, don't put them in the bowl. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean your workflow has to be entirely generic. Many of us are working in Google Workspace districts using pre-approved enterprise tools like Gemini or Notebook LM, but an approved tool isn't a license to overshare. An approved tool means you have a safer driving lane, but you still have to keep your hands on the wheel. The universal move is simple. Before you prompt, ask yourself, what is the learning target, and what can I safely generate before a student's identity gets involved? If your prompt starts with the tool instead of the learning, it's going sideways. Make me a worksheet is a weak, hollow prompt. My students need to practice identifying a claim. Create 3 short scenarios with 1 flawed conclusion in each. Now the learning target is firmly in charge. Which brings us to move number 2, redact before you prompt. I want to frame this as a practical habit, not a terrifying legal seminar inside a windowless hotel conference room with questionable carpeting. The rule is simple. If you're using AI to help you brainstorm feedback options for a specific piece of writing, strip the identity out first. Jordan Smith's essay doesn't need Jordan's name, backstory, or your personal context about how Jordan's semester is going. Instead of dumping raw student data into the prompt, summarize the pedagogical issue itself. Student A wrote an argumentative paragraph. The claim is clear, but the evidence is completely unlinked to the reasoning. Create 3 short feedback stems that guide a student to connect data to a mechanism. Don't grade the work, don't infer student intent. Here's the rhythm to remember. Redact, ask, revise, decide. That's the whole loop. Redact what the machine doesn't need to know, ask for drafting options, review the output with your own human eyes, and decide what actually fits. Move number 3, AI-assisted feedback must keep evidence attached. This is the ultimate teacher temptation because grading takes time, and writing the exact same feedback comment 40 times can make even the most patient educator start negotiating with the ceiling tiles. But let's be entirely clear. Feedback is not garnish. It is not a decorative piece of parsley tossed on a plate next to a grade. Feedback is a professional claim. It says, here's what your work demonstrates, and here's your next cognitive move. Therefore, you must do the heavy lifting of noticing first. You read the student's work, you diagnose the gap, then and only then does AI help with the linguistics. Let's make this concrete in my Science of Cooking class. A student writes a claim evidence reasoning statement about why reaction A produced more gas than reaction B. The student has the data, but their reasoning is entirely vague. They write, recipe B spread more because it has different ingredients, which isn't technically wrong. It's just the scientific equivalent of pointing at a kitchen and saying, food happened. As the teacher, you recognize that the gap is the scientific mechanism. The student needs to connect this data to the butter content or the protein structure or heat transfer. Your AI prompt should look like this. Create 3 feedback stems for a high school science CER where students state data but fail to connect it to a molecular mechanism. Keep each under 35 words. Then you inspect the output. Does it use the vocabulary you taught? Does it push the students towards a deeper model? Or does it just ask them to rewrite more words? Because we don't want prettier sentences, we want stronger science. If we take this across the hall to ELA, the problem looks identical. A student writes an essay with a great quote, followed by reasoning that essentially boils down to, this quote proves my claim because it proves my claim. It has the grammatical structure of reasoning, but absolutely none of the caloric value. Don't ask AI to grade the essay. Ask it to generate your feedback menu. Create 5 distinct feedback stems for 9th graders addressing a dropped quote or circular reasoning. Then you pick the one that matches. Inject 1 specific detail from a student's draft and hand it back. Without that human detail, feedback is just a fancy rubber stamp, a well-plated mistake. This applies across the entire building. In math, use AI to generate 5 parallel linear equations and answer keys and potential error analysis steps. But check the math yourself, because AI does have a habit of jumping difficulty levels like a video game character using a cheat code. In social studies, use it to draft historical document analysis questions. but verify the historical accuracy because LLMs are notorious for hallucinating primary sources that never actually existed. Same pattern, every discipline, AI drafts, teachers inspect. Students do the actual thinking. The fundamental trap of the AI era is confusing a polished presentation with actual quality. Polish is just aesthetics. Quality is fit. Does this task fit the learning target? Does this scaffold support the learner? Or does it do the cognitive heavy lifting for them? Every AI draft is fundamentally unfinished until a human teacher inspects it. Before you launch any AI-generated material into your classroom, run it through this 5-point inspection checklist. Alignment. Does this directly match my learning target? Cognitive rigor. Does it preserve the thinking the student needs to do? Accuracy. Is the content factually correct? Privacy. Is it entirely safe from a data privacy standpoint? And number 5, the transparency test. Would I be perfectly comfortable explaining this design choice to a parent, a colleague, or my principal? The last question is a beautiful filler. If your gut reaction is, I'd rather no one knew I used AI for this, that's your professional intuition telling you to step on the brakes. Let's establish our absolute red lines. We do not use AI to make high-stakes, isolated decisions about human beings. Not grades, not placement, not disciplinary referrals, and absolutely not to determine whether a student cheated or to infer their motivation. AI can help you organize your notes. It can help you draft communication. It can help you build options, but professional judgment belongs solely to the human with the teaching certificate. Because a polished comment without evidence isn't feedback. A polished lesson without student cognitive demand isn't a task. It's just well-plated. So here's your challenge for this week. Build one single reusable prompt template. That's it. Just about 10 minutes of work. Keep it small enough that you will actually use it. One template, one classroom task, one place where AI helps with the prep work while you keep the judgment. Just copy and paste a master framework into your notes app. Frame it like, I'm a secondary science teacher creating support for a classroom task. Do not make grading decisions. Do not infer student capability. Only use the evidence provided. Learning target is blank. The task, say, is draft feedback stems or simplify directions or create examples. And the requirement, keep the cognitive demand high and flag anything I need to verify. Success looks like this. You save 20 minutes of administrative friction, but the final product still sounds entirely like you, protects your students' data, and drives real learning. The tool isn't magic. The teacher is just in control. To wrap it all up, teacher AI use isn't inherently good or bad. It all depends on where it sits in your workflow. Go upstream where you can. Redact before you prompt. Use the tool for wording, options, and examples. Keep evidence firmly attached to your feedback. Review everything before your students see it. And never hand over your professional judgment. AI can help us plate the meal, but the teacher still has to taste the food. AI can draft, teachers decide. If you want to figure out how this boundary looks in your classroom, just send me your questions. Don't worry about a perfect version. Share the messy real-life version. That's where the real learning happens. I'm Peter Weise, and this is Science Wise. And as always, we are trying to build classroom routines that still work even when the tools keep changing. See you next week.